Hello friends, it's time for another reading vlog. I cut myself shaving. I haven't gotten quite the hang of it yet. That's why there's a little cut here. So, I'm going to be reading 5 books for this video, maybe 4. I've had these books that I have in front of me right here at home, just sitting there looking at me saying, read me, read me. But the reason why I haven't gotten to them yet is because 3 weeks ago I learned about the St. Martin's Press boycott. It's been going on for months now, and I guess I haven't really been on like Bookstagram where it's mainly been happening, or like following the right people who's also doing the boycott. But I just learned about it because I think it's like Readers for Accountability has like a page focusing on what the boycott means and persists of and what you have to do. And it's a marketing boycott, which means that you shouldn't be like talking about the books that St. Martin's Press publishes. And so I was going through like this, like, ooh, there is a book on this list that is published by St. Martin's Press. And I think the reason why a marketing boycott is like so effective is because you're not letting the consumer make a choice, because if they don't know about the book, then they can't make a choice to buy it or not. But like if I talk about the book and I just leave it up to you to be like, you know, even though this book copy of the book is not specifically published by St. Martin's Press, like I didn't support St. Martin's Press by making the purchase of this book, and you could also choose to get the book somewhere else and still support the author. That's just, then I'm giving the power up to each individual, which I'm like, that sounds great to me, because I think everyone should be able to think for themselves, make their own choices. But if you're not even talking about the book, then you're kind of making a decision for them in a way. I hope that makes sense. At least that's how I perceive why a marketing boycott would be effective. The reason why I've been struggling with this is because I'm like such a small booktuber. I doubt anyone's gonna go and buy a book because of me, and if they do, I feel like I trust my audience enough to not buy from St. Martin's Press. I also feel like it goes unstated, but I don't think it should be unstated that I'm 100,000% support a free Palestine. I'm just getting in the hang of like being online again, and I haven't been talking about, you know, my political thoughts, but we've been always been very for the people on this channel. I feel like, God, it's been killing me a little bit, because the reason why I want to talk about this book is purely selfish, because I want to read it and I want to be able to talk about it, and I won't be able to support this author because I do think this book is great in itself. But if I'm not following the boycott, then I'm not following the boycott. Period. Does that mean I don't support what it's doing? Yes and no, you know? Anyways, 4 minutes into this video, and I am rambling on about things I shouldn't be rambling about. But that's why as I'm saying this, I'm like, should I include this book or not? I'm just being stupid. But what if I love it? But anyways, important things are happening in the world. Let's put me aside. If I show you the book, I will blur it. So this book is the book that would be published by St. Martin's Press. This specific copy is not published by St. Martin's Press. And I think it will be a great book, and I want to highlight this creator too. This book was recommended to me by Queer Book Takes, not me specifically, but Queer Book Takes on Bookstagram. Guys, did I even say what this video is? Messy, messy, messy. So, in this video, I'll be reading some Bookstagrammers' favorite books of 2023. I did a similar thing while I read Molly from Mouse by Moonlight's favorite books of 2021, I believe. Quite a while ago, so 2 years ago, I think. And I really enjoyed doing that video. I will be doing a similar thing, but from different creators in this video. So 5 different creators, 5 different books, all from Bookstagram. And yes, this is one of them. I'm going to read this last, and then I'll decide if I'll include it or not. But I guess you would know. So the first book on my list, we have Mrs. P by K. Patrick. All these books are queer, by the way. All of them. Every single one. This is very yummy, and I'm excited for it. This one is recommended by Bestiary. She's an author and also posts only about lesbian books, pretty much. which I think is pretty cool. Gotten quite a few great recommendations and books to look out for from her. This is also by Most by Moonlight, top of last year, which just gives it extra plus. Then we'll get to Molly straight away. I'm gonna pick another book by her. I'm gonna do it. No one can stop me. This is The Fifth Wound by Aurora Matia. Also, this cover, like, you cannot convince me that this cover isn't absolutely stunning, and I don't think we can be friends if you don't agree. Like, I love it. So good. Vintage vibes, but this one's also kind of like multimedia. Oh, no pictures. Some pictures, different formats. It looks fun. Excited about this. I barely know what these are about, but I'm so excited for all of them, so I'm fine with it. This, I think, is a big Bookstagrammer, but I haven't really been on Bookstagram. I just started now, so this person is called Read with Nicole. This is opposite of a person, translated from Dutch. I believe also climate fiction, also lesbian. Then we have this book, Bestiary, Kaming Chang. I've had this on my TBR for so long. I did not need to get this book for this video. I've been wanting to read this for such a long time. And this was the final push to finally get it done. It's been recommended by Reading Picnic, which funnily enough is a friend of a friend that I met in real life. So I've never met this person. I think they live in the US, but they're a friend of a friend, and that's how I found them, not through Bookstagram contacts, which I think is kind of fun, but they're also a queer reader. And then I also wanted to feature books by Phantom of the Library, but the two books that would be like their top 2023 favorites that I would be interested in reading. One, The Heart, is a horror and it's only sold on Amazon, and we don't support Amazon on this channel, so I just simply can't get the book. And the other one is Organ Meats, which is another book by the same author, so I thought I might as well just start with this. And then Bisexual Bookshelf and Read in Reina both had Monstrilio on their favorites of 2023, and I also want to get my hands on that one, but it comes in paperback soon, so I'm waiting for that instead of getting the hardcover. So that's also going to have to wait, even though I'd love to read some of these creators' favorite books. And yes, this whole reading vlog will be queer. It will be these 4 books plus this book? Question mark? Exciting. Messy, messy, messy. Okay. Messy, messy, messy. I don't know which one I'll start with. Actually, I do. I'm gonna start with this one. This is gonna be a long vlog. Should I even talk about my life? It's so messy. I've been sick for a week, like really sick, and then just as I was getting better, Ruby stopped eating, one of the bunnies, and she's been to the vet yesterday, and she hasn't been eating for 2 days, and if you know bunny anatomy, they need to eat every 4 hours, or else they'll enter GI stasis, which basically means their system will shut down, and they will die. So when a bunny stops eating, it's very serious, and I've just been force feeding her for the last 3 days, and it's been exhausting. I have slept like max 5 hours every single night, on top of like trying to recover from being sick. And then there's actually supposed to be 2 ballroom shit is happening this weekend. I'm hopefully going to the Kiki ball happening tomorrow, but again, if Ruby's not getting better, then I don't know what's gonna happen. And I'm not going to the major ball on Saturday because, yeah, I have not been in the right mindset. I feel distracted. So essentially, I'm doing this reading vlog now so that I can be at home, take care of Ruby, but still having some fun and giving myself a distraction because it's all just like very stressful. So maybe there'll be more bunny content in this video. Let me see where everyone's at. Charmy boy. Charmy boy is sleeping. What are the other bunnies doing? Ruby, she is cuddling with Ben. Ella and Lilo are now living here, peeing and pissing down the place like usual. Yeah, just it's chaos. Also, we found a caterpillar in our kale a couple of days ago now. She's really growing. Her name is Claudette, but I need to exchange her veggies in her planetarium. Do I know what I'm doing? No, but I can't like kill her. We call her Claudette because the last caterpillar we found in a broccoli was called Claude. He mysteriously disappeared, unfortunately. Hopefully he's a butterfly somewhere. But before we start reading or anything, I'm taking a little fika break. Yeah. It's like 3 o'clock already in the day. I've been stressing about Ruby all day. My partner had this, works at a bakery, and they have given me a fastelavnsbolle. This is not really what they look like, but it's a fancy bakery, so it looks a little fancy. And I'm just gonna watch the video. I'm just gonna take a chill time for just a little bit before I start reading. Yeah, I got informed. This is the Fastelavn. I have to ask them because I just looks weird. This is what my partner had to say about why it looks like that.
Really, and
Wow.
if you make anything at all, I recommend reading this.
Already, I'm not a huge fan of how short the sentences are. It makes it so choppy to read. Let's see if we can fix up a little space for Claudette. I don't know exactly where she is, so I'm a little worried. There you go. That's Claudette. I'm gonna give you some new stuff and things. Big poops. She's down here. Don't worry, baby. This is what I made for her. We didn't have any more of the green pepper she really liked last time. I gave her some broccoli instead. Some salad. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. I know you're holding on for dear life, but there's better stuff in there. There you go. It's nice. Benny boy. It's my reading spot. Don't you dare pee there. So I've tried to move to a better reading spot so that I can keep an eye on Ruby and see if she's eating. I have to keep the fan on to keep it warm in here, which is like the buzzing sound. But I've read 50 pages of this. It's basically about this non-binary lesbian Australian person who goes to be a matron at this fancy English boarding school. Matron. It all seems very like foreign to them. But then they get this crush on the headmaster's wife, Mrs. P. And I think it's going to be about like their relationship and a little bit about how our main character, whose name I don't know, is like comparing their life and their experience with their body with like the experience of like the girls, which it was written in capital, of this boarding school, and how their lives are so different and how they experience themselves is so different. I'm on page 50, and so far like nothing's really happened and it feels very slow. I think it's just gonna be about their relationship, but like the language, like the way this is written, it actually physically hurts my brain to read it because on average I think every sentence is shorter than like one line in the book, which is so short, and I have to keep pushing my eyes like to keep reading because it doesn't flow for me whatsoever. Maybe I get into it, maybe I get used to it, and I'll not bother me, but right now it feels very impersonal, it feels very difficult to read. And on top of that, like the conversations are all just like integrated into the story. Like Michelle T does like the same thing where the dialogue is in the text, but she'll like make italics out of like things that she says or like the other person says, and so you know what is conversation and what is not. In this book, it's just integrated as if it was like normal thoughts the main character was having. And so sometimes, general, I have to like think about whether what I'm reading is like part of the conversation or if it's thoughts that the main character is having, which is frustrating, annoying, and right now I'm just not vibing with it. It's not the vibe that I want. It feels written this way intentionally, but not in a way that I feel like serves the story. Like, I feel like it doesn't really do anything except make it difficult to read. Like, I feel like this could have been written differently and still had the same impact, is what I'm saying. But I also don't know what the impact the book is trying to have, the vibe it's going for. Maybe I will end up loving it. Who knows? Stick around to find out. But right now, I'm just like, gosh, I can't believe I have to read, like, is almost 300 pages. Yeah, 300 pages of that. The chapters are very short, so that's good. But I'm also not interested in, like, Mrs. P. She does not seem like an interesting character. Our main character, they could become interesting, but right now, the perspective and view they have of things, which is very limited through the text, we don't really know what that is, doesn't really seem all that fleshed out. They seem kind of like a could be anybody type of person right now. But who knows? I've heard that it's like really good representation for a non-binary lesbian person character. I think it also reflects like the author's lived experience because the author is also non-binary and this is their debut. I will just keep on reading, chugging along. We're having different burgers tonight, courtesy of Herdes.
To the location designated on the map immediately. You will receive instructions when you
We're merging.
Yeah, I think we're merging.
immediately means right now.
Oh, all right.
Next time on Survivor, the winning team will fly to one of the Federated States of Micronesia. Yeah.
Oh, I made a big old mess. But I think, you know, mending your own clothes is cool in itself. I agree. So. It's nice. Two jacks.
What card do you have?
I don't know, it's your turn to play.
No, it's literally your turn. I just took a jack.
Oh, I have this one.
Oh my god, wait. Is that a banana queen?
Yeah, and Charm King.
Banana king? Wow.
16.
14 is the highest.
Not in casino.
So we're gambling now?
A casino. Casino. That's what my mom calls it.
Is your mom a gambler?
No.
Well, she sure won the lottery with you.
But you're also a gambler.
Me?
Yeah.
No. You're a safe bet, baby.
Can't see anything on camera. Her hair is just everywhere. Oh, sorry. Didn't say anything about your hair. Hello. Good morning. So, I don't have a bookmark yet. I'm just using the highlighter. I'm on page 132. The writing is still really bothering me. Mrs. P and our main character are getting closer. They're kind of like stepping around the subject of like queerness and lesbianism. It always says on the back that they're like gay for each other. So, like the whole suspense thing that's like supposed to be the main part of the plot, it's just like not really working for me because I know they're gonna get on with each other. And on top of that, the writing, I know I already talked about it, but it's like I just can't get over how the writing has character, but it's like feels as if it doesn't have any personality. Like it's very emotionless, the writing. It's almost like okay, it's like if a doctor were to use the tools of poetry, the energy of a dark academia, and then try to write a romance. Like that's the best way I can describe the way it's written. It's like it's just I don't feel the characters at all. And like because the dialogue is like integrated into the story, I feel like all the characters are talking in the same tone and way as the narration. So it's all just really flat to me. And yeah, I don't feel like I know these people whatsoever. Gosh, I woke up like very not long ago. So I I was supposed to meet our friend Cami today, but Ruby's still not really eating. Unfortunately, I'm probably gonna have to stay home. But I had this and I'm cooking some eggs, making some breakfast. So we'll eat first. With the fork and a knife, right?
Me? No.
Me? Wait. Yes, I am. Did I do something weird just now? No.
Like putting your coffee in the fridge or something.
Well, I thought I put the red onion in the fridge,
But
but
it
when I
was-
turned around, the red onion was still there.
Huh.
And then I was like, oh my god, what did I put in the fridge? There was the butter.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
You look just dandy this morning.
Which is funny because we have like a demonic.
Okay, so I just wanted to read you a passage so you get an idea of like how choppy this text is and like how a little bit of like the dialogue is integrated, just so you get a sense. I'll do like this every time there's a new sentence, okay? Halfway up the hill, she stops. Off the main street, down a narrow alleyway, in a line of bars and restaurants. People smoke cigarettes in large groups. Around here, somewhere. I train my eyes, looking for a sign. What's it called? Lips. I laugh. She laughs too. We pass men with ties tucked in their pockets. Some kind of event. A wedding, a race day. Dribbles of beer already train their shirts. Women put their arms around each other, nestling, swapping encouraging sentences. Those shoes will all be off later. She nods at their heels. Plenty of them stare. Only a couple call after us. And it's like, there's dialogue in here. Like, part of these sentences are like dialogue, and it's all mixed into like the text. And like the sentences all sound like the same kind of. And the thing is, like, you do understand what is dialogue, but sometimes you also don't. Like the line, those shoes will all be off later. She nods at their heels. So she's like, you understand that she said that? Thing is, I can see what the author's doing. I'm not enjoying it. I don't like it. So, I finished it. Can't believe I've been reading this book for like 4 days now. Okay, first off, what this book does, it does exceptionally well. I think the atmosphere it creates, even with such like short descriptions, or the fact that it's like not describing like the environment all that much, I can totally visualize everything. It's very atmospheric. It creates like a certain ambiance that it does really well. I just am not jiving with what it's doing. By the halfway point, I was definitely getting like easier with the writing, but I was just never on board. I just don't like it. And I think it touches on like so many things that I do really love. Like the fact that our main character is 22 and Mrs. S is like in the 40s. Like there's a 20-year time difference. I think it's interesting how they relate to their sexuality different. Like also their life is just completely different. I find it like interesting, like those parts and conversations. I like them, but just like the way it was told, like the vehicle of the writing, I just didn't like it, and so everything doesn't feel as like powerful as it could feel for me personally. There's this kind of mentions of this dead author who used to go to this school, and I thought there would be like a plot with her and that she would like come into the story somehow, but it just kind of didn't really go anywhere. There was no like B storyline really, although I will say our main character develops this like beautiful friendship with one of the house mistresses. All the characters in this book are unnamed except Mrs. P. No, Mrs. P, Mrs. S. Our main character's relationship with the house mistress was my favorite part by far. I love their relationships. It was kind of like a safe space where they both could be like their gay self, and I just like that was my favorite part. I loved their relationship, and I loved how at the end, this is not really a spoiler because you'll have no context for it, but at the end our main character's relationship with the house mistress ended up like meaning more to them than the relationship with Mrs. S. So I really liked that part. I felt like the story didn't really go anywhere. It was just very flat throughout it, very much the same. I did feel the messages more, and I felt the conversations more. There was quite a few like quotes and lines that I was highlighted because I thought it was really nicely written, ironically. I've spent a lifetime focusing on the interior, a place that happens without me, organs passing through their intimate thoughts. Under the sun, coated in pollen, holding this knife, feeling as though I might suit it. Her voice happens between my legs. The sex scenes, I feel like worked better with the shortened sentences and writing style because it is like a little more like action packed, I guess. Like I thought the sex scenes were like well written, and there are quite a few in here. The PE teacher might be flirting. I have lost sight of what is straight and what is not straight. I am haunted. Turns out I love to be haunted. Each day she reveals a new fact about me, about my body. The possible scale of lesbian qualities pleases me. That it could be lesbian to control the sea, to beam into households on summer nights, that anything could be lesbian. All you have to do is announce it. I found that relatable, just like for any queer identity, I guess. And this is just like a conversation part. Yes, of course it would be difficult to have romance again amongst the girls. The idea is they can focus here, in a same-sex environment. They can become the best version of themselves. I laugh. Unless that version is a lesbian, of course. Why do you have to do that? Do what? Dramatize it. Christ, make this political. Yeah. So I'm just like a little bit sad because I think if this story was told differently, I feel like I could really love it. And also, I understand why people love this book and that it was like one of their favorites of the year. Like, it just does what it does really well. It's just not something that I enjoyed, unfortunately. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars, which feels cruel for a book that is actually well written, but just not for me. But I feel like I have to write books according to my own enjoyment because what else is there? Yeah, I hate to have like started off on such a bummer. Like off the bat, 4 days with this.
Bits about my favourite ones, but now I've forgotten. I really like this one. I kind of connected with this one. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. It was really good.
Yay.
4 stars. So well written. So clever. But also so gross. So gross. And there's a lot about...
I'm sorry, Shot.
So it's a couple of hours later. I just really needed to rest after reading that book. I felt like it was about to put me in the reading slump, and I struggled to pick my next read. So out of these 3 books, I just read the first page of each of them, trying to scour through which ones had the longest sentences. That's how badly it damaged my brain, the last one with the short sentences. It was so difficult for me. I don't know why. And I have concluded that this book, The Fifth Wound by Aurora Mattia, recommended by Waltz by Moonlight. I'm gonna read you the back of this one because I started the first page, found the longest sentence, and immediately realized how freaking intimidated I am by this book. But it sounds like really fucking cool. So, The Fifth Wound is a phantasmagorical Roman à clef about a passion as a way of life. In one dimension, this is a love story, Aurora and Ezekiel, of separation and a reunion. In another, we witness a tale of multiple traumatic encounters with transphobic violence. And on yet another plane, a story of ecstatic visionary experience swivels, shatters, and sparkles. Featuring time travel, medieval nuns, knifings, and T-for-T romance, The Fifth Wound indulges the blur between fantasy and reality. Its winding sentences open like portals, inviting the reader into the intimacy of embodiment, both its pain and its pleasures. But that just sounds amazing. Like, I feel like I'm gonna love this, but it's also written interestingly. It has kind of multimedia. There's like some pictures and stuff, and some interesting formats. Here is, I think, Chinese. Some parts are like blacked out. And then other parts are text, or what's it called? Text messages. And then I saw pictures, like, also just this. Like, look at the structure of this page. Like, I'm so intrigued. But also the language. Have I just, like, picked really hard books for this video? Like, am I gonna struggle with all of these? I don't know, but I feel like I'm gonna love this one. Good morning. It's Sunday, the next day, still reading this. I'm only this far through because, surprise, surprise, this is also a difficult read. I'm on page like 70, so yay me, because when I started this, I felt so intimidated. I was like, holy shit, am I going to be able to read this? Am I going to be able to understand this? Because most of it, I'm just like, oh my god, what is going on? Because it's written like really poetically. It's very lyrical, and there's a lot of similes and metaphors, analogies that just like run through the page, and some of the sentences are so long. But it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful, and some of it is quite funny because it's written in like referring to old mythologies and stories and stuff, and it's like woven into the text, and I wish I understood more of the references, especially like the biblical ones. And it's essentially like a love story so far between Aurora and Ezekiel. Aurora as her main character, and they are trans, and some of like the trans stuff is woven into the love story, and Ezekiel is also trans. But we also know at this point that Ezekiel has like left Aurora. We're just getting glimpses of like small things that kind of like happened, but nothing is actually happening in the story. Like, it is all just text kind of mixing like theory and poetry, and it's fairly dense. And I was really intimidated like reading it last night because I'm like, holy shit, am I gonna be able to read this while I'm tired, like before bed? But it almost actually became easier because I wasn't so focused on like understanding everything, and it was almost like I end up understanding more. So at this point, I'm like hopeful again that I'm gonna really enjoy this, but it is not what I typically read. They're like footnotes and pictures and stuff, which are fun. And I'm also like amazed at this author and how well done. I'm feeling more positive about it today. So we'll see.
think mine looks better. Okay. Oh, careful there, cowboy.
He's being blasted at travel and emotional edge. Even if he doesn't make up his mind before we go.
Oh. So you can see us. Oh, oh, French boy. Oh, strawberry boy. Oh.
Hello. I feel like I have a lot to update you on. We're just chilling in the bed today. I have fun stuff happening today. We're having fika. Herdis is going to bake my day on their way home to work. And Cami, our friend, is coming over to do crafts, so we're gonna do that today, which I'm really excited about. I will probably edit the last few clips that you saw as if it was one day, but it's been 3 days since that one morning when I updated you about the book, because I basically just had time to read it in the evening. Yesterday evening, I finished it, and I kind of wish I would have updated you more because I had so many thoughts while reading it, but this always goes to sleep before me, and so I can't update you in bed at evening when I'm reading, basically. But wow, this was a journey. I don't even know how to talk about this book. It's so frustrating. So it's kind of heavy autofiction. I would, at some parts, describe it more as just nonfiction, memoir style. But because of these kind of weird supernatural references and things and journeys that the author takes us on, it does turn it more into autofiction. And also after reading some interviews with the author, which I did like immediately after finishing the book, it is fiction, but it's just heavily pulled from her life. So the book is divided into 3 parts, and the first part is very confusing, I would say, because it's so lyrical, it's so poetic, uses so many words. I wanted to read a book with long sentences after Mrs. S, and I got it. Because the sentences in this are so freaking long. Sometimes they were like half a page and they just could go on, and it would start at one point and end at one point, and I could not understand how it was connected. So many words to describe a feeling, and the first part is quite confusing because she's weaving in these tales of like the first trans woman to ever be recorded in history shows up at her hospital. She's weaving in these stories of Catholic myths and Bible verses and text and literature from like, yeah, I already told you that part, into the story, and we don't really know if it's real, and she's kind of being transported a little bit into, for example, at one part she's like in the spacecraft, considering her life. Sometimes she's like off having an affair with this siren, and those parts are kind of very brief in the story, and I think personally if those parts were a bigger part of the story, I probably would have felt the importance of those stories themselves like a little bit more, because after the first part 2 and 3 become more legible and understandable, and it's more about these memories of things she has experienced in her life, and it's talking about like the 5th wound, as in all kind of the wounds being traumatic things she's gone through. So it does kind of focus on that alongside having this main story be love story between her and Ezekiel. So it's quite like harrowing, the actual plot, when we get to take part in the action. It is through these really severely traumatic events, and I would like highly recommend looking up trigger warnings for this, because just to mention a few, it has self-harm, sexual assault, I would even say trigger warning for suicide. Medical discrimination I thought was really tough to read about in this book, and I would love to talk about that whole scenario, but I feel like going through that in the book with the author is more powerful, so I'm not going to talk about it. But just like the medical discrimination that she was going through because she was trans, I thought was really well written, and I was so into the story. And right now, I had this reading about this nonfiction called How Scylla Learned to Talk, which is about like this dog that you learned to use the push buttons to talk or whatever, and had this kept sitting next to me like giggling about this book that was really cute about this dog, you know. And I was reading this like horrible like sexual assault scene and like this medical discrimination scene, and I was like so discombobulated by the fact that Hedis was just laughing, and I was like, you can't laugh, this is super serious. um, that was an interesting experience. But my least favorite part of this book, I think, is the part where she's included texts of people, what's it called? Publishers that have denied her manuscript, essentially, and like their responses, which I thought came across as like a little petty. But then, like, later in the book, she specifically talks about why she's writing the way she is and why she's narrating the way she is. And somehow, even though, like, in the first part, I understood so little of what was going on, by the end, I understood why, essentially. Like, I understood why the author was writing like this. And I don't know if I can really explain it, but it's essentially about... I'm wondering if I should just read you parts, if I should try to explain it. I'm not great with words. That I understand this author deeply on the experience that you feel feelings so deeply and so vividly that words cannot really describe what it is your experience of life is. That intersecting with like a queer identity and the trauma you've gone through because of that, but also like the love you have for another person, and that like it just can't be described. So she's like using all these words to try to like communicate these feelings that she's having, but through that also romanticizing the experience she's having, because essentially it's like a tool to be able to survive, to romanticize your own experiences, because otherwise it's like so harrowing to go through. And she also has quite a lot of self-awareness, or like self-irony, like it's a little silly at parts, about the fact that she like uses this as a tool to keep her from almost like being a real person. And I'm gonna read you some parts. Just, I know this was a long review, but I want to be able to talk about this book properly. I ended up not highlighting a lot in the beginning because everything was beautifully written. That's just like a fact of this book. But there was just like some parts that really struck with me, and I also want to try to give you a good impression of what it is like reading this book, because I feel like I want you to know what you get yourself into. So this, for example, is an example of a line that's more understandable, but I liked it, I highlighted it. Daylight was a terrible confession. It was like admitting you were going to die one day at that exact location of your body. So she talks about like the concept of empire, and the first time she talks about it in part 1, I highlighted the text, and it says, the colonial urge as perpetrated by empire is that wherein colonizers, lacking their own life force, attempt to absorb, to assimilate, that is, to vampirize time, attention, every possible labor, leisure, lineage, silence, desire, dreaming, prayer, memory, pleasure, folding, interdimensional exaltation, spiritual ambit, signal fire, perishable and non-perishable nourishment, prophetic and instantaneous daydream, subterranean reservoir, and a mesh of myth from those they seek to represent. Because the colonizer is the vampire of universality, singing, it's a small world after all. I like that part, and she keeps like going back to certain things that she's referencing. I also like this quote, it's easier to conjure a dream world with a friend than it is with a lover. And in that way, it's preferable to be a friend. But a lover strobes into your skull and sees your dream world. A lover sucks on your nipples. And these are, by the way, the shorter sentences. Some of the sentences are just long and not understandable. I found this part, like, relatable, I guess. This is just part of a sentence, because I can't include the whole sentence, it's so fucking long. Because I had sometimes felt that if I didn't expose my every sensation as if my soul were exploding, as if the echo of the explosion of my soul resounded like an endless wave of confession, then I was lying. I was only creating for a sequel the illusion of a uniform love, which for those intervals of marriage, I believed to be the ultimate betrayal. Deciding for myself which substances to breathe into our shared secret glade, and which to keep in my own lungs. Responding to the needs and generosities of the instant, exerting an intuit tandem with Ezekiel, the shape-shifting impulse of vision over the composition of our atmosphere. And then later down that same page, there's no good reason to want a lover in search for a glimpse of their soul, nor to wound myself attempting to offer a glimpse of to mine. There is only the proliferation of mysteries pressed upon each other, only the density of a knot. And I highlighted this like footnote because I thought it gave some insight into why she's writing like this. And I speak to you in poems because there's nothing more miraculous than finding my own feelings as an artifact, as if proof that dreams were more than a furious static of meaning, but formed a genealogy as hard and porous as bone. As if recitation, in the instant of confession, vaulted feelings to its own fifth dimension, activating a wellspring of ritual and extending this lake of an Oasis spell. So as you can tell, it's not always understandable. I think this also gives some insight into why she's writing like this, how she experiences the world, essentially. Too often, I overdetermine an instant, imagining the future as if it were already a memory, rather than experience a volatile glamour without the guarantee of a story. I highlighted this part because I wanted to have an example of how she will like write things into the story in references that by the end of the sentence I don't know what she's saying. So sometimes the book can be like this. The mermaid was offering to take us to a cave on Saturn's moon, Enceladus, where Dolly Parton once played a full set in a mother-of-pearl 3-bowl diverse helmet with matching acrylics, where the siren sometimes sang in the off-season, where Sappho wrote her infamous mid-career ode to Death Aphrodite of the Spangled Mind, and where I will one day write my infamous ode to instantaneous Aphroditos of the Spangled Boudoir. Yeah, gosh. Also this part, oh, my battery's blinking. I have this whole page, and I'm gonna read it to you, okay, because I want to. I want to say that I feel at last like I can think, or that I am thinking at last like I can feel. Perhaps because I've hidden in a copse of cypress trees with no audience other than vultures and strawberries, no longer distracted by men and women asking me to explain and re-explain the simplest facts about my fairy mind and fairy desires. I'm hearing the first sound of a new song. Minimalism is a luxury that belongs to people who can expect to be understood. There would be no need for rumination, for the double helix of dependent clauses, which fairy shame irrepressibly encodes into my assertion, if I could assume my subcontext were a universal truth. But the species of eyeless school-dwelling spirits, those echolocating astral howls, sometimes scramble and restructure my inner monologues such that every thought, rather than performing a fearful recursion of the last, briefly assumes the flavor of revelation, as bright and uncoverable as a blue star dissolved in a kaleidoscope, rainbow abyss, are fitful, unpredictable, certain not universal, so unless I make myself extravagantly explicit, unless I ensure every atom of my vision is as rococo as a Fabergé egg, unless I trap my reader's precarious faith in sentences as labyrinthine as Escher's staircases, such that any attempt to disprove my results inevitably in vertigo, that is, unless I sublimate my confessions into Gordian equation of symbols, who will believe in my outraged scrap of self? Which I thought was excellent. So I'm gonna give this 4.75 stars. I ended up loving it, which is just so unlike me. I've never read anything like this. It's super unique. I would give it a favorite because sometimes I did feel that feeling that I feel with favorite books, and I can feel it in my chest. But the reason I'm not giving it a full 5-star is because there's still parts of it that I do not understand. And I think if I would to reread it, possibly it could be a 5-star. So success. Molly strikes again. And now I have to start a new book. Wow, cute! Very cute. So I started reading The Opposite of Person by Lieke Marsman, translated from Dutch. The top favorites from Nicole, I don't remember her name, on Instagram. This is definitely an easier read, which I'm like, finally, something not too poetic. And then I open the book up and it's like, these are the other works by the author, and it's like all poetry. I guess this is just going to be that type of vlog, to be honest. But this is definitely easier to read. The chapters are short, the text flows like smoothly, but it kind of jumps a little bit between like thoughts the main character has on like climate change and some past moments that she's had, and then also what's kind of like happening now, which is that she's accepted this internship in Italian Alps to research something with climate change. As of right now, she has not left her girlfriend Robin in Amsterdam yet, but that's in like the synopsis, and I'm only on page 30. So I don't really have too many thoughts yet, but I have highlighted some things that I like. I think this book has the best opening page that maybe I've ever read. But the first opening line, I can read it to you. It simply says, "As a child, I loved to fantasize about being a cucumber." And then it goes on from there, and it's really cute, and I really love the first page. But that's the vibe.
With every other wild animal trying to survive.
Oh, capybara! Did you see that?
Getting to follow Enid's arc for this video, because I don't know when else I would have gotten to it. It was a pre with somebody narrating it for me. I can feel that this is going to be an emotional book. I think people told me that, but also
Right now I'm making some more coffee. It's around midday. Already 2? No, like around 2. So, as you can tell, it's the next day. And I'm feeling emotionally like a little aimless. Like I had breakfast this morning and then I was just like, what am I doing today? And then quickly followed with, what am I doing with my life? I have so many small projects going that I have to like make myself do them. And I feel like I could tell you guys because it doesn't really matter if you know this. I just feel like once I have said it, and if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna be so disappointed in myself. But essentially, I am trying to open a queer bookstore in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I've been working on it for a year now, but it's complicated because opening a business is hard. I haven't gone to business school. I have owned my own company, but it was a private company in Sweden when I had called Willimaloo, where I sold like remake clothes online. It only went meh, but I have this problem where I only really view something as a success if I like enjoyed it and if I learned something from it. So to me, owning that whole company, Willimaloo, was a success because I loved it and I learned so much, you know, but financially not successful. And hopefully I want to make this successful financially, not because I want to be a capitalist girly, but because I actually need to live. And if I'm going to spend a lot of time owning and running a bookstore, I need to live off of something. I'm not doing this to like earn a lot of money, you know, but I do want to earn enough to keep it going because there's no queer bookstore in Copenhagen, which is just bizarre. And I've talked to so many people who really want to make it happen, but it is complicated just because I had to learn so much about like how Danish the systems work, and also I don't speak Danish, and that's been like complicated. And on Monday we had a meeting with someone who might want to be on board with this whole thing. I'm doing it also together with Herdis, which is scary but also cool. And Herdis also has a business experience, and the concept's changed like so much over the last year, but I just really want to make it happen. But it's also difficult to every single day keep yourself accountable and keep working on it, especially when there's so many different people who have like different tasks that you have to work together. And with Herdis working, it's like difficult to get the business plan going. Anyways, it's complicated. But anyways, this would be really cool if it happened, wouldn't it? And I feel like you guys are the people who would be excited for this thing, you know, out of everyone in my life. So I'm gonna do something with that today. Maybe I'll make like a little schedule plan, stuff and things. I've also been working on this nonprofit trans magazine, which is really cool. Just like only trans creators who like submitted stuff, and we're all trans people who are making it. It's called Fluid. We are so close to printing it, and yesterday I was spending time like putting in all the trigger warnings for all the pieces and everything, and I just need that approved, and then I can send the content to all the creators to have them approve the final layout. and then we can send it to print, and then like that can happen. And it's just like one of those projects that's also been almost going on for a year now, doing for free. And you know, I just like I keep doing free work, which is fun because I feel like when I monetize something, it becomes less fun, which is also why my YouTube channel is not monetized whatsoever. I'm just doing this for fun, but it also obviously like impacts my life. Yeah. So that was a little life update. I don't know. Maybe you wanted it. Anyways, let's talk about the book. So this, I read a lot. I read all of this yesterday because the chapters are like literally one page, and I'll show you yesterday. The last thing I read was this page, just has snow written in the corner. And then there's like some poetry, 2 lines here, 2 lines there, 2 lines there, more 2 lines. And then here is where I am. So it's like very fast just because there's so much space and the language is very easy to read. I actually thought that we would start the book off with our main character, Ida, already being at this Italian research facility as an intern, but actually it took us 100 pages for her to actually go there, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it would be like her kind of reminiscing about her relationship once she was already there. But in the beginning, we got quite a bit about her and her relationship to Robin. And so far, it's been told through like these arguments that they've had having. And so far, I also don't think they're a good match for each other. But it's also because we've been only really told about their arguments and the ways they're different rather than like all the nice moments they share, which I think is an interesting choice. They don't seem great for each other. It's not a linear story. Like there's not really been anything happening. It's just kind of these like small passages and chapters that jump between telling stories from the past. Sometimes there's like a poem, and then sometimes it's like a moment or a conversation or argument she has with Robin. And then sometimes there are these passages that are talking more about Ida's thoughts about climate change, some facts from like, or excerpts from different books about climate change and how she relates it to like parts of her life. And there was this like huge chapter on queerness and how she has viewed her queerness and heteronormativity and capitalism and how it's like connected. So it's kind of like goes into more like political theoretical thoughts on these subjects, which I do find interesting, but it's kind of like more the type of thing you would read about in like a nonfiction essay collection or something like that. But it's interspersed within this story, and it all seems kind of random, like the order that these chapters are placed in. It doesn't really seem like a narrative that makes sense with how this is all put together. But if you like that type of story where the essays are kind of woven into the story, like I feel like you'll like this. But so far, even though I agree with the things that she's saying mostly, and I do find it interesting, it's just not hitting the mark for me. I'm getting the feeling like it's mediocre when I should feel like it's profound. Mostly it's just because I know a lot of the things and that she's talking about, but I'm interested to see where it goes, and I'm also interested to see what like kind of the final takeaway from the story is going to be, how the climate change thing alters her life more. I was curious about the person who recommended this, what they said about this book. She said, emotional, beautiful, and unique, a climatologist battles achieving her dreams with maintaining her relationship with her girlfriend. Yeah, that's so far makes sense. I wouldn't say this is as unique as I expected it to be, but I think that's also just like coming off of just read a super unique a super unique book, The Fifth Wound. So I think I'm just going to finish this today so I can start my next book. I do think this is a book that's very easy to recommend. If it's not their favorite book, I feel like most people will like this. I am reading a lot of, or actually I'm only reading queer literature now because I want to be more equipped to recommend books in the bookstore, which is why I am only reading queer books, but I do have to be a lot better with reading more diverse queer books. There is something to tracking your diversity stats, because I think once you track, you become aware, and if you're not aware, you can just keep reading. And I think especially if you're like white like me, it becomes very easy to just like not think about reading from like people of color unless you have like stats where you're like, oh, actually I'm not, and then you have that aha moment. But like now that I'm thinking back on like the books I've been reading, I really haven't been reading a lot of books by queer people of color. Anyways, that was like a whole sidetrack moment, but so it's the next day, and I finished The Opposite of a Person late last night. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was fine. I enjoyed it-ish. I felt as if there wasn't really much story to it. Like, it is fiction, but the essays that were in it were very random to me. It didn't seem like there was like a narrative throughout it, like the progression of the type of essays. It didn't make sense to me. I felt like it touched on a lot of topics and sort of like attempted to string together climate change, love, relationships, capitalism, queerness. Like it tried to kind of put it together, but all the topics were discussed separately. And I wish the story was more like used as a conduit to like connect these topics, because I feel like it had potential to do that, but they just all like seem sort of like separate issues, and ultimately like it didn't work for me. I felt like it was also very cynical, and I don't really enjoy reading cynical stories, especially when it has to do with climate change. I understand and feel definitely like the dread and existential crisis of climate change, but it's not the feeling I want to have when I'm reading about it, because I find it demotivating, I find it depressing, I feel like it doesn't take us anywhere, essentially, which is sort of touches on as well, but just didn't do it for me. There was an essay all the way in the back, sort of, about love and how essentially it comes from a place of like lack almost, because it stems from a feeling of longing, and longing means that there is a hole, and thus so there's like a discrepancy between, yeah, I don't know, okay. And I just didn't agree with the author's perspective or the character's perspective on love in general. It felt very pessimistic and cynical. Yeah, I guess I don't really like reading cynical texts and literature, because it's not the way I view the world, which sounds a little bit like self-involved to say that. I only want to read books about the way I view the world, which is not true, but just in this type of text, the type of book this was, I just didn't enjoy it. I did take some notes on some stuff and things. I did find the concept kind of interesting about, like, the title comes from the fact that our main character has this memory of her mother saying that, like, all people are shit, basically, and she wants to, like, not be shit, and so she has to not be a person. Theme of objectivity and subjectivity also kind of runs through the book, but ultimately there's, like, no plot that's interesting. The ending is just sad and depressing, and also I didn't like it. It just felt like here's a lot of information, a lot of thoughts, and there's no points, sort of. And those are my thoughts on the book. I do realize that sometimes reading like people's favorite books, especially like the type of people I follow, does mean that a lot of their books are really serious, because I think the things that make us feel profound things are the ones that end up being favorite if they really resonate with you. And so like the 3 books I've read so far have been like a lot. They have all been like poetic, existential in some way, I feel, and just a lot to process. And I feel like it's just my brain, it's just, this is too much. Too much. Like, I would never read these 3 books after each other if it wasn't for this video. The reason why I picked up this one by this specific creator, like I wanted to focus on smaller creators, but I picked this one because Nicole also had Membranes on her favorites, which I also really enjoyed, so I thought maybe we had similar taste, but I haven't read anything else that she's loved before. It was just kind of a test run. Next up, I'm going to read Bestiary by King-Ming Chang. This was recommended by Reading in Picnic. We have Braiding Sweetgrass in Common, which is obviously like a completely different book. But I've had this on my TBR for years and years now, and I can't believe I haven't gotten to it, so this is kind of just a push for me also to finally get to this book. But because it's been on my TBR for such a long time, I feel like the book really intimidates me. There's no reason for it. It's just that I've had it for so long and wanted to read for so long that now I'm like scared to pick it up. And for whatever reason, I feel like it's going to be a difficult read. Definitely going to be serious, but I believe this one is like a little bit speculative, which I'm excited for. I didn't know it was queer. I think that it is, but the top blurb on the back is by Charles Yu, who has written Interior Chinatown and the other sci-fi book that I also really loved, so that bodes well. But it's also been blurbed by Thea Lim, who wrote An Ocean of Minutes, which is a book was really depressing and I did not really enjoy. So this could go either way, but I'm just so interested in this author's work, and I'm like really interested in Oregon Meats as well. So I just like, I'm about to pick this up, and I should pick this up, which is what I'm gonna do next. Gosh, wish me luck.
It's coiled. Play, please.
Okay. We're watching it illegally, okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
The length of this pasta. Oh no, it broke. It was really long. Wait, I'll find another one. Oh, it was so long. This one's only medium long. Oh. Okay, it was like double of this.
I can't exist around her. I can't look at her. I can't walk by her now.
Coach is definitely pissed about voting on Jerry, but
We spoke about her a little while ago. It feels like the girl who was doing the tongue piercing thing where she was like, bleh, 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 bleh.
Rat. Butter. Lord. No. So, evening time. I filmed the reading wrap-up for January, finally. I've been meaning to do it for such a long time. And now I'm trying a new recipe that's called Indian fried rice, which reminds me like really similarly to something my mom made with like peanuts and turmeric and cumin. So I'm really excited to try it because I feel like it's going to make me feel nostalgic. I also watched like Renee Rapp on SNL, her like doing weird interviews, because I was listening to the podcast Two Dykes and a Mic, and they were talking about her and Mean Girls and stuff. We also watched the new Mean Girls movie, and it was fine, but it was fun to go to the cinema because we barely do that. So we're gonna eat. Oh, I also had to put ointment on all the little heels of all the bunnies. You know, I feel so bad for them. The little babies with sensitive little heelies. This is what the food looks like. Peanuts. I think it's gonna be pretty good. I'm gonna put it on top of some spinach. So it's a new day, and today I am going to a ballroom session after I take my ARC shift at ARC Bucks today. And I have not talked about this book, is what I realized. I've almost gotten through half of it, Bestiary, and I'm enjoying it. It's like, it sort of follows these three women, grandma, mother, and child, and the majority of the perspective so far has been from the perspective of the youngest girl in the family, and there's kind of these like magical things that are happening in the story, which I don't really know what is real and what kind of coming from the characters' minds, because it plays a lot with like, what is that called? Like storytelling and myths and stuff, and integrating myths and magical elements from stories into the actual plot and what's happening, which I'm finding fun, but it's not like my favorite thing to read about in a book, but so far this book is like doing it well. Our main character, I think like the main plot thing that's going on is the fact that she has like starts developing this tiger tail, and right now she has also gotten like a best friend, and I'm enjoying their relationship a lot. It has a lot of casual cruelty, both to like animals and things, but the main one is domestic abuse, and I'm finding it like quite tough to read, to be honest, but it's just like very well written, and I don't really have a lot to base this next opinion on, but it kind of feels a little bit like a quick and messy, which I know it's grasping at straws a little bit, but the author like compares certain things to other things that you wouldn't think to compare it to, like comparing like the moon looking like a nipple, or our main character says she can relate to like the guillotine in a story. Yeah, all these things that I was just like fascinating to read about. Like it's really well written, and I started highlighting some things, but I ended up like highlighting too much. So I was just like, you know what, this whole book is one big highlight. So let's just stop, okay? Yeah, it was just it's very enthralling and captivating to read. I can't wait to finish it, and I know that I'm gonna want to read the other books by this author. Yeah, and I'm so glad I'm doing it because I felt so intimidated by this book. I had this feeling like it was gonna be a difficult read, which is not really, but it's my fourth book in a row now reading poetic writing. Like all of the books in this video have just been like poetry core fiction, and it's graining on me a little bit, but also they're all really good. I'm very excited to finish this, and I have decided to read the last book in this vlog, the fifth one, and I will talk more about that and why at a later time. But now we're gonna go to ARC, we're gonna have a fun, chill day. Hi, Tits. Hi, Teddy boy. Oh, itchy, itchy. Yeah. He's such a good boy.
There was something about the narrative voice that this is a very meta book about an author who is imagining a TV show.
It's another morning, and I have come this far through the book. I'm gonna finish it today. It's good. I'm enjoying it. Mostly just because of the language. I think the language is really beautiful. I think the way the author writes is really beautiful. That part is amazing. I think the way there are so many like fairy tale myth stories, or like stories that are passed down from like mother to daughter, from grandmother to daughter. So many stories from like their families, and it's all like woven together, and different chapters follow different stories. It's just not to my liking. Like I find that it's lacking plot or a thread that like drives the story forward, and I do think that it's all going to make sense in the end, and there's so much in it, like when it comes to who you are in relation to like your history, your lineage, how it forms you, like these tales that you're told as a kid, and the way you view the world, and what's like you, and how do you break the, I was gonna say curse, but it's not the right word. Like it's really interesting, and I am enjoying it. It's just the storytelling like format is not for me, and I do think the fact that this is my fourth poetic book that I have like read in a row is affecting my enjoyment of it, and I do think I would like this more when I read it another time, which is always like just unfortunate, sort of. And also, do you know what this is? This is my libido shot, my testosterone. I'm going to the doctor's in 10 minutes because I live like 5-minute walk, if not less, from my doctor, my GP, which is really nice. I get my testosterone shots every 3 months, and I get the full 4 milliliters because my period had not gone away. They didn't find like the doses that worked for me. So now we're trying something new, which is like the highest dose you can take, which is a lot for a small little body, okay? So far, it's worked with stopping my periods. But last time I missed my appointments, I got like a new nurse, and she just did everything wrong in the book. And I asked her like if she'd done one of these like intramuscular libido shots before, and she was like, yeah, it's fine. But then she asked questions like, do you want to stand up or lie down? Which is like, why would I want to stand up? Your muscles are supposed to be like super relaxed, you know? And then she asked questions like, oh, I forgot my glasses somewhere. Like, can you read this label for me? Can you just read the number out loud? Or when she was putting the liquid inside the needle, she like picked the wrong needle, so she had to change the needle. But when she changed the needle, the liquid wouldn't enter the needle. It was just like one mistake after another, and it made me so nervous. And now I'm nervous I'm gonna get her again. I mean, it worked. It stopped my period, so I mean, she must have done the actual shot right. Anyways, it's been so nice not using the gel and just being on the shots because I only have to go into my general practitioner like once every 3 months, which is so little, and I like barely think about it. And when I see videos of like people who give themselves like injections every week themselves, I'm like, I don't think I would be able to do that. So I'm glad that's not me. And I live in Denmark where it works differently. Ugh. But don't get me started on the Danish gender affirming care system because it sucks. Anyways, I'm gonna update you more about this book, and I haven't said a lot of my thoughts because I think I'm getting a little tired of doing a reading vlog that like spans so many days. It's pretty much been 2 weeks, and I've decided to do the last book, which is gonna be even more. I'm gonna finish the book today, and it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. I'm gonna do some cute, fun stuff ahead of this. Maybe I'll show you. So, we're back. And my butt hurts like a motherfucker. It was the same nurse as last time. She was still making some mistakes, but it's okay. She was able to push it in really fast. And it's like this thick, oily liquid. And now my butt really hurts. Blah. But I walked it off a little bit. I got some stuff that I've been meaning to get for a while. Deodorant, lip balm, and then I also got 3 colors of yarn. I tried to just get the cheapest kind because I'll show you. I am crocheting this. I just basically started doing back and forth. It's the only thing I can crochet, and what Kemi taught me. But it's like not because I don't want to make anything like spectacular. I just want to like have something to dilly-dally with, like when I'm watching Survivor and stuff. And I had no plans for it. I just wanted to do the activity. But then I was thinking it would be fun to like have maybe like a bed runner. I don't know if that's the official name for it, but like a long sheet that you put at the end of your bed, which I think is cute. And we're trying to cutify, aestheticize our home. I don't know if that's a word. But these 3 colors are like other colors that kind of match the bedroom. And originally, if I knew I was gonna do this, I would pick like a darker color instead of this light green, because the dark green that I have like with the TV stand and stuff is darker, a little more gray. But I'm thinking like together, it probably makes more sense. Like it will make sense with the room, even though this green is not right. So that's really fun. And then I also got a box. I get really excited by these boxes. I can't explain it. It's just so small and dainty, and the fact that it, like the lid closes properly. Sometimes I just go and look at the boxes and I just get really excited. But I had no plans for it. But then I thought, you know what? I have quite a few scenes and stuff that I've picked up from scene and comic conventions, along with like business cards and stuff, that it would be so cute to keep in a little box, and this is like a great format for it. There's some really good stuff in here. I also have the first edition I made of my cheesecake scene. Wow, look how cute that is. Adorable. Wow, just a great size, isn't it? Great purchase, Wilma. Also, I wanted to do a little book haul. I ordered 4 books at ARC, but I'm not really supposed to be buying books. So I only purchased, or like actually paid for 2 of the books and just left the other 2 until I have money to purchase them. The call out, I originally heard about this from Sage's Discord, where they were talking about using this as a potential like buddy read or book club pick, and it just like intrigued me, and then I had it on my radar for a few years, I think, and then now it's like, you know what, I want to purchase it. It's all written in verse, and I only read 1 book written in verse before, so this is interesting, but I think the themes are going to be really good. And then I got this one, Guapa. This, I believe, is a gay Palestinian novel. I don't really know much about it, to be honest, but I haven't read a lot of like male romance or perspectives. Like most of the stuff I read when it comes to queer literature is either trans or lesbian. So I'm excited to get to this too. That was my haul. Maybe reading fuel.
That I've restructured my Patreon. I know lots of you over here go support me over that. That's really cool.
So I finished making the 2 little scenes. This one is just very silly and cute. Then this one, I'm not going to show you the inside because there's nudity. But I finished the 2 little scenes, which is very exciting. I'm just making 5-minute noodles. I'm not feeling like making anything exciting for lunch. but I'll show you the noodles because I've never tried this 5-minute noodle taste. Sauté onion. I'm hoping it's good.
Through this, you'll make your own life and you can't appreciate it.
It sort of like all muddles together. Muddles and befuddles. Yeah, this guy looks very befuddled. Where's the nose? We can fix all this.
Good morning. Oh my god, I cannot make my hair look alright. It's okay. We're just gonna... Yeah, it's fine. Yesterday I finished Bestiary, and I thought it was good. I liked how it kind of came together at the end, especially like the themes and how there's so many layers to the story. All the tales that were woven together through the relationship of like these women and the relationship to the men in their life. It was very beautiful and harrowing and difficult to read at times, for everything from like the cruelty to the casual animal cruelty. But I loved like how the animals were like centered in the story through being part of like all these characters' lives and their myths. I thought that was very interesting and fun to read about. I think the author did an excellent job, like considering this is a debut. And I also looked it up yesterday, like the author is my age, which is just wild to me. I don't know. I am getting older, but still it's like it strikes me as a little crazy. It's not like a new favorite, but I'm like so intrigued about reading more stuff about this author. I'm definitely gonna do that, like Organ Meats for sure. And then she has like what's it called, Cecilia, coming out this year. And I was thinking of giving it 4 stars while I was reading it, but I just feel like the ending didn't quite like close the narrative for me, and also like the narrative was lacking, and I didn't get that like new favorite book feeling in my heart at all. So I'm between 3.75 and 4 stars, which is kind of like where my thoughts are at. But I'm really glad I read it. I'm super glad I read it. There's just the language. It was great. The language was just like above and beyond, and I loved reading it just for that. And I think that was what made the book so intriguing. But my favorite part was still the daughter's relationship with Ben, which is just such a small part of the book because it's just not the focus. I think it tackles magical realism in such an interesting way. The way that it's like these myths are kind of reality, but you could interpret, I guess, the story as just like these aren't all tools to express certain themes and feelings. But I also like that it's also very real, the magical realism elements that are happening in this book. So, very cool. It's Valentine's Day today. Hertis is making breakfast. I think maybe they're making pancakes. I don't know. I guess you'll see. First time I slept over, Hertis made pancakes in the morning, and I thought it was the cutest, most romantic thing ever. So we'll see, maybe there will be pancakes this morning, or maybe there will be something else. I know Hertis checked the whipped cream yesterday, so that's what made me suspicious. But who knows? Am I eating the H?
Yeah.
And you're eating the V?
Yeah. W for win.
It's not true.
You don't know it's true. And they start with blueberries. I was trying it out.
Little hearts. So cute.
Or you turn it into this.
So before I jump into my next book, I want to tell you how conflicted I was about including this, because I have been following the Readers for Accountability on Bookstagram and trying to be updated on what the St. Martin's Press boycott is all about, why it is a marketing boycott versus like a purchase boycott. I don't think that's what it's called, but because in my mind I was always like, well, if you don't want to be giving the press like any attention except bad attention, also wouldn't it be great to not give them any money? Because to me, like, money speaks louder than not promoting their books, because essentially they're big print. They will be able to like sell their books anyways, and if it's not a purchase boycott, people are still allowed to go and buy their books. And I understand the argument for, well, if we're not promoting the books, then less people would buy it, but then also that comes back into being a purchase boycott, kind of. And so I was trying to read up on why boycotts are effective because I wanted to educate myself more on the subject. And essentially, with big companies, they don't really care about purchases because it doesn't affect the company much. And the reason why boycotts are effective is because it gives companies a bad reputation, which essentially affects investors who invest in that company. And that money is what really affects the company. You know, that's what they don't want. They don't want bad attention. So to me, I think a boycott, no matter how it's done, is always going to be giving the press bad reputation. And so no matter how the boycott is done, you will essentially achieve your goal. To me, I was like, well, then why don't I just follow the boycott? Because I obviously believe these women, I want to stand by them, and I should let the people who know what they're talking about decide how the boycott should be done. But I think there was something, a part of me that was conflicted about this, because ultimately I feel like the writers are the ones who are gonna suffer the most because their sales of their books is what's important to them. And it didn't feel right to, for example, not talk about this next writer because he's been posting stuff that are very like pro-Palestine, spreading awareness about the genocide. They're both doing great things, and is there a way to support both people? So I was like trying to find a way that it was right by me and what I believe in, and I kept thinking like, well, is it just because I just want to read this book? And it's like, no, not really. I could just read it and not tell anyone about it. To be honest, this is a very small channel, and even if I didn't follow both boycotts, I don't think anyone would necessarily care. But I do think it's right to, you know, bring attention to it, spread awareness, and if you want to follow the boycotts, spread information about that. So I will link links below that talk about it. The rules that I've kind of made up for myself about this boycott is that I will not be talking about any books whatsoever that you can only purchase through St. Martin's Press or any press that is under St. Martin's Press. So if you can purchase the book from another press, I will encourage you, please do not purchase the book through St. Martin's Press or any press under St. Martin's Press, and buy the books from another place. This way you can support the author without supporting St. Martin's Press. I feel like I've said their name enough. They don't need any more attention. So that's what I decided for myself. You can disagree with me. Maybe I'll disagree with myself later, because I've been going over this in my head so much, like back and forth, what is right, and this solution for me feels right for me, so that's what I'm going to do. So the next book I'm going to read is Blackouts by Justin Torres. This was recommended by Queer Book Takes, I believe, and they also had Lapvona on their best books of the year, which makes me so nervous. So nervous for this book because I hated that book. And the fact that someone who loved that also loved this makes me feel like I'm not gonna like this. But people are complex, they like different things, so maybe I'll love this. This is also multimedia format. There are, as you can see, like pictures, and I don't actually think that I've ever read a novel that is like this. I don't quite know what it's about. I think there's a person that's sick and another person is there and they're sharing stories and they intertwine. I'm excited to read it, but I'm also thinking, am I reading another poetry book? Is this also going to be poetic and hard to put together? And I also feel myself like kind of not really getting into a reading slump, but I really want to read something like super light, or just take a break from reading after this, to be honest. But this is what I'm going to be reading next. It's 300 pages. This vlog is already spanning over more than half the month. We'll see where this vlog takes us. The beat of my heart, and I won't stop until I start to stand out above the crowd, even if I got shot out loud. So I'm only on page 30 or so, but I'm flying through it quite quickly because the passages are short and there's like pictures and stuff. But I can tell you what it's about now, I think. It's about our main character, which we don't know the name of. He's going to take care of this guy called Juan that's staying at this place called the Palace, and he's old and he's dying, but he is in the middle kind of doing this research project, which we know has something to do with homosexuality in men. Both our main character and this older man are gay, and they met at juvie when our main character was only 17. And then it's going to be basically about their relationship, I think, like their respective like backstories and maybe this research project kind of. So I think that's the synopsis. Right now we are just covering the backstory of our main character, but I'm very excited to learn more about Juan and the research project, which our main character has promised to finish when he dies. We're gonna do a little Valentine's Day movie night. I'm excited. It's gonna be cozy.
Okay. And then what happened?
I think he said that he thought I was really good at performing, and so he gave me a picture of him with 2 guns from the military.
Right. What a price?
Disgusting. We present to you, for one night only, the stuff we're getting rid of.
She also brings up Walt Whitman, who had his own penchant for self-promotion, and the double standard, because I feel like my taste in books is very specific, and I've been led astray many times trying to follow someone else's taste. Seems to be the subject of romance.
Hi there. A little update. Book. I'm like this much through, a little above halfway.
What book are you reading?
This one, Blackouts by Justin Torres.
How is it?
It's good. I was just telling people about it.
What is it about?
Well, I've already told most people.
I didn't hear it.
It's about this young man who takes care of this older man who's basically dying. And I thought that they met at in juvie, but actually they met at a mental health facility, hospital. And I don't know exactly why they got there, but I think either it's because they were misdiagnosed because they're not white, or it's because of homosexuality.
Not the homosexuality.
Yeah, it's true. So I really like what this book explores in terms of like what illnesses and diagnoses and like mental health or physical health help you can get is like determined by like colonizer history or like white ideas of how a person should and should not be.
Yes, I agree.
You agree that the book explores this?
Yeah, I fundamentally agree.
But I mean, we already know this, that like,
yeah, of course,
medicine in our Western hemisphere is made and dictated by colonization and white supremacy.
Right, yes, that.
But it's just kind of like, it's also like fascinating to read about.
Yeah, I came in here to tell you if you could come help me with dinner now.
Okay.
But you can just...
No, I just want to focus anymore. Doesn't sound activate.
What do you mean?
I was just going to tell people about how we've been cleaning the hallway for the last 2 days.
Oh, love, that is not yours.
It's okay, he can eat it. We've been cleaning the hallway. We're taking out everything from the closet, basically. Cleaning them, reorganizing it. Taking a bunch of stuff to the Red Cross.
Mm-hmm.
And then today we cleaned everything. It's very nice. Because we've been meaning to do it for such a long time.
Yes.
Now we're going to attempt to bond Charm and Dee Dee with Ella because of the whole situation that transpired at the beginning of this vlog where Ruby got sick. And now she's not bonded with Ella anymore. Ella and Lilo are separated, and now we need to figure out that whole situation. It's very complicated with the bunnies and their relationships.
Stay tuned for scenes from the next episode of Bunny Town. Next time on Bunny Town. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
I'll come help you.
do your thing and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll be in the kitchen.
So, like I briefly touched on, I do find the themes of this like fascinating to read about. I love the discussions that kind of enter through learning from their experiences, like both these people and also what the research that this Juan Alderman is doing, and kind of how it's about homosexuality and their life and tendencies. And through it, we're also learning about this gay woman, I believe, called Jan Gay, and her girlfriend slash wife, their part in this research and their part in Juan's life. Yeah, I'm finding that like kind of like the mystery of it. Like, what is this research? Who's this older woman? Well, I guess she's not old when she made this or was part of this project. The main themes are like this getting medical care, or how people perceive you if you're not white and straight and cis and a man, I guess, because that's the figure that all medicine is like based on helping, and everyone else who doesn't fit into that or is not that, they kind of get filled by healthcare, you know, today as well. I'm mostly talking about in our Western world, obviously, because I also don't know much about healthcare in other countries and what their medicines are based upon. You know, can't speak on it. But I'm finding that conversation really fascinating, and it's not very in your face. You kind of have to like read between the lines, and there's just like small snippets here and there. It's very anti-colonial and fascinating to read about. And the fact that they're just like following only these two people, I find very nice. And it's mostly about like their past and them telling stories and stuff. But I also find the setting quite unique. The fact that they're in this like room in this one place, and they're just like, he's dying, but they're also having these conversations at night, and now they're shut the curtains and they're kind of just walking around in their underwear, and it's very whatever that vibe is. So enjoying it a lot. The pictures and stuff are also a lot of fun. I like how they give like context to the story, but also make it feel like their stories are real, which like, what do I know? Maybe they aren't based on true stories, because there's like children's illustrations from like Jan Gay's wife. So it makes it feel really real, and I like that a lot. And excerpts from like other texts and stuff. But I've basically only been reading at night because we've been doing this whole hallway project. Very messy at home right now, and loads of stuff to relocate, but it feels so good. And I'm gonna help pet this with dinner.
There was just kind of this funk that was permeating the camp. We were sitting around.
So it's a new day, and we put up the frames like you saw, and it looks really cute, but we've put in like post-it notes, and not the pictures that's going to be there. It's going to be like a cringy photo family wall, but also aesthetic of both of our families together. I think it's going to be really nice. And also, the bonding process of these bunnies have started. I feel like it goes without saying that you should not keep bunnies in cages, but they need to get familiar with their scent. So after I've done this for like a week or however long I feel it takes for them to like relax, I will like bring them closer and closer, and then eventually, hopefully, they'll be friends. It's been a lot, the whole bonding thing, my whole life. Ever since I went on this journey with the bunnies, it's just taken so much of my time and energy. And we also put Lilo together with Ben and Ruby, who were bonded before Ruby got sick, but now since they've been separated, Lilo and Ella together. I was hoping that their bond was strong enough and I could put Lilo back and those trio could be nice, but then as soon as I put her back, pretty much, they started fighting. So Lilo's gonna have to be alone for a little bit. Ella's in here now, and we're gonna bond her with Charm and Dee Dee. Then I'm gonna try to bond Lilo with Ben and Ruby again. So it's gonna be a long process. I'm hoping for the best, but it's very like emotionally draining, and obviously I have to be like home a lot, which is not what I was really hoping for this period, but I just can't keep Ella and Lilo in such a small space. I'll show you. It's tiny and I just don't feel comfortable with it. I'd rather like start the bonding process, keep them in cages for a little bit, and then they can, you know, run wild. It's very messy, but this little tiny space here is where Ella and Lilo have been while Ruby's been recovering, so yeah, it's too small. Hopefully this works. I'm gonna be spending a lot of time in this chair, so I'm gonna go and get some more yarn and I'll talk more about that later. So, as you can see, my little crochet project here, that was going to be our bed runner. This yellow part is one whole yarn. I just might be obvious to some people, but I think I was shocked by how little it was. So I had to buy 4 new ones because that's what I calculated I would need to make the yellow section as big as the green section. It's going to be a very expensive bed runner, but I'm assuming that yarn like this is probably one, not supposed to be crocheted, but used for knitting, and second, that I'm not supposed to be doing it this tight, but there was like a slight difference in thickness between the yellow and the green, so I had to do the yellow a little tighter, which is why it looks like nothing. But here I am making my little project, and I am listening to Gender Reveal, and I'm probably going to read it a little bit later, because I'm going to finish the book today, and this vlog will be over today. Yay! I'm starting to really, really like the book. Gosh, switching threads is no small feat. Careful there, buddy. Hey, we did it. Yeah, so yesterday there was this part where our main character, which I'm not really sure what his name is, and Juan kind of told stories as if they were movies. So they would like narrate the stories with like, next shot is this, and then scene switches, but it was like all one story. And I just found it really fun to read. And we finally got more information about Juan's adoptive lesbian parents and about the study and how it's connected. And I find the story really unique, like the basis of the story, and also it's just told in a way that's very casual for feeling so real. Yeah, the messages are subtle, but also very evident. I'm liking the conversations a lot, and I'm also liking the story. I mean, there's not much happening in like now time, and it's also just like kind of flashbacks and stories and stuff like that. But I'm just finding it really exciting to read. So yeah, I'm wondering how it's gonna end. I feel like maybe Juan will die at the end because we already know like he's kind of on his deathbed. It's just like tidbits of information that's revealed. It's just really good. I'm very excited to keep reading and finish it. But first we're gonna crochet and listen to some Gender Reveal podcasts in the darkest room in the apartment on the sunniest day of winter. So friends, I finished Blackouts by Justin Torres, and I'm going to give some final thoughts. Some thoughts that I haven't talked about yet, and I had to write them down because I'm always thinking stuff when I'm reading and then I forget about it. Our main character dabbles in sex work. That's part of the conversation in this book. And a lot of the relationships that go on, including like the platonic relationship between our two main characters, are between a young man and an old man. And so the wants and desires of these people and relating that to their ages is definitely like a thing that is talked about in this book and that it comes up that I find interesting. And yeah, just like, I love that the book is like very gay in a homosexual men type of way, but I also love that because of Juan's relationship with these two women researchers, Senya and Jan Gay, that it also like includes lesbians. And I liked that the book wasn't just focused on like one type of queerness, but many different, and the relationships between them, the solidarity and care for each other, which is something I really like to see in books, like when different queer identities and queer people are there for each other, because it happens all the time through history, but it's not always written about so beautifully. Something else that I really loved about this book is how the topics are quite heavy, as it also touches on like racism, with the two main characters both being Puerto Rican, living in the US, and that obviously like their identity and their history affects their lived experience and how they experience their gayness, but also relationship to other people, and classism and how it has affected their economic status and poverty. And yeah, it's just like there's a lot of topics in here that can make the book feel very melancholy, and both the characters are kind of sad and are struggling, but it doesn't feel heavy, and it doesn't feel like a burden to read it. It doesn't feel taxing, which I feel like a book like this could so easily become, but it doesn't feel like that, and it managed to get its messages across just as strongly, which I'm very impressed by, and I really admire this book for that. I really like that part about it. What I will say though is that the writing sometimes, especially when they're talking like in conversation with each other, sometimes feels a little bit like I am a character in a book and therefore I structure my sentences this way, and they wouldn't really be talking like that if they were two actual people. But it could also stem from the fact that Juan is like older and has like a little bit of an older way of talking. But it didn't affect me all that much. It was just like, sometimes I'm like, people don't really talk like this. Who recites things in conversation? I guess some people do. But all in all, I really love this one. I'm so glad I read it. I would highly recommend it. It felt like we got so many stories, and yet I desire a lot from it, but I'm also very happy with what I got. And the fact that I still have questions, and the fact that I still want more holes in all these character stories to be filled in, I think is good for this book. It doesn't feel like it's lacking, which you might assume when I say that. So really enjoyed this. This is a hit. I'm gonna give it 4.75 stars. Yeah, it was just unique, and it's normalcy in a way. And then at the end, with like the author's note and stuff, it says that Blackouts is a work of fiction, but the author is not gonna confirm or deny if it's real or not, which I think is kind of funny. But there are like a lot of pieces and stories pulled from the author's own life, and he kind of dabbles in the idea that Juan is real, and that these two gay women, Sanya and, was that her name? I keep forgetting. Sanya and Jan are real people and characters, which I don't know. I guess it would be very easy to look up. And that the research that the book is referencing to and is talked about throughout the story, sex variance, is a real work of research. So I guess it has a lot of truth to it, which is why it also feels like so real. So we have come to the end of the reading log, finally. I started this, I think, on the 1st of this month or something. It's now the 17th. So I don't think there's going to be a February wrap-up. This is going to be the wrap-up. Here are all the books I read. Wow. I'm going to order them according to my enjoyment. Let me see. This is how I would rate the books. Both of the top ones, the 5th one and Blackouts, are 4.75 stars. Amazing books. It's so funny how I got this book recommendation from someone who had La Fauna on their best of list, and I hated that book. Yeah, I feel like the only one that I really wasn't a big fan of was Mrs. P. This one I did not enjoy, but all the other ones I enjoyed to some capacity. Wasn't a huge fan of this one either. the longer I'm away from it, the less impressive this book seems. Definitely gonna read more by K. Ming Chang. This one, kind of a 5-star, but also I can't give it 5 stars because I don't understand it fully. And this was great. So yeah, this is a little bit, tiny bit higher maybe on this list just because I understood it better than I understood The Fifth Wound and therefore maybe enjoyed it more, but fantastic books. They all are kind of lyrical and poetic in their own way. They're all super unique, which, well, the least unique one I would say is The Opposite of a Person, but other than that, these are super unique. I understand why they are on someone's like favorites list because they all have that quality that a book that becomes a favorite has, and I don't really know if I can explain it to you, but they're all very impactful and cover topics and different topics and conversations in such a profound way. Profound, I guess, is the word. All these books have that quality, and I understand why all of these books would be on someone's favorites. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Thank you to these Bookstagrammers for posting content and recommending these books, I guess, inadvertently to the public and to me. Yeah, comment down below if you read any of these, if you have any books from last year that was your favorites. I wish you all the best. I hope you have a brilliant, beautiful day, and I will talk to all of you soon. Bye!